Alright, y'all, check this out. BCM Raider here, bringing you another Commander deck. Today we're looking at Kentaro, the Smiling Cat. This is a mono-white samurai deck, but it's also kind of a combo deck as well. So, what Kentaro the Smiling Cat does, apart from being a 2-1 with Bushido, like most samurai, Kentaro will allow us to cast our samurai spells as though they were colorless. That also means, because of this effect, all our samurai spells can be affected by any kind of cost reduction, and we're going to utilize that. So let's get right into it. First up is all those samurai. So we have Devoted Retainer, Samurai of the Pale Curtain. This one's pretty nice because if a permanent would be put into a graveyard, it'll get exiled. Now we have Kanda's Hatamoto. As long as we control a legendary samurai, Kanda's Hatamoto will get +1/+2 and vigilance. Now we have Araba Moth Rider. This is a lower costing samurai with flying. Now we have Inner Chamber Guard. This is just an 0-2 with Bushido 2, so it has a bigger Bushido. Bushido is whenever that creature blocks, it gets plus whatever the Bushido is. Now we have Hand of Honor. This is a protection from black samurai. Now we have Sensei's Golden Tail. This one is actually pretty nice. It has a activated ability where it'll put a training counter on a creature and it'll become a samurai and Bushido 1. We do have some samurai that don't have Bushido that we may use Sensei Golden Tail to put training counters on, even though they are samurais. So we have Iganjo Exemplar, but whenever a samurai or warrior attacks alone, it'll get +1/+1. Now we have another one with Selfless Samurai. This will protect any other creature that we need to stay on the battlefield. But whenever a samurai or warrior attacks alone, it'll gain lifelink until the end of turn. Now we have another one with Narika Yamakaze the Poet. This is a legendary samurai with vigilance. Whenever a samurai or warrior we control attacks alone, we can return an enchantment from our graveyard. Now we have Imperial Subduer. Whenever a samurai or warrior attacks alone, we get to tap down a creature we don't control. Now we have Kitsune Blademaster. This is a very efficient Bushido 1 first striking samurai. Okay, now we have an interesting one with Opal Eye Kanda's Yojimbo. This is a fox samurai that has defender, so it can't attack. But we can activate this, and the next time a source of our choice would deal damage this turn, that damage is dealt to Opal Eye instead. Or we can pay a colorless and a white, and we can prevent one of that damage that would be dealt to Opal Eye. So if your opponents are trying to deal damage to us, we can prevent that damage and redirect it to Opal Eye. Now we have Indebted Samurai. Whenever a samurai we control is put into a graveyard, we can put a +1 counter on Indebted Samurai. Now we have Moth Rider Samurai. This is just a larger flying samurai. Now we have Nagao Bound by Honor. Whenever Nagao Bound by Honor attacks, every single samurai is going to get +1/+1. Okay, now we have Sunblade Samurai. This is a very large samurai, it being a 4/4 with vigilance. But if we need a land, we can pay 2 and discard this card, and we can go get a Plains card and put it into our hand, and we also gain 2 life. Now we have Iron Soul Enforcer. This one's very powerful. Whenever Iron Soul Enforcer or our commander would attack alone, we can return any artifact from our graveyard to the battlefield. Now we have the Wandering Rescuer. This one's really cool. Apart from having flash, which means you can play it anytime you can cast an instant, it also has convoke and it has double strike. But every single other tap creature we control will have hexproof. Okay, now we have the iconic Takeno Samurai General. This is a higher costing samurai, but what it does is going to be very valuable for us because apart from having Bushido 2 itself, each other samurai we control is going to get +1/+1 for each point of Bushido that creature has. And we can use Sensei Golden Tail to continually put even more Bushido counters to make those creatures even bigger. Okay, now we have some Changelings. These are going to be every single creature type, but more importantly, they're going to be more samurai for us. So we have Irregular Cohort. When a regular cohort enters the battlefield, we're going to create another 2/2 shapeshifting token with Changeling. Now we have Universal Automaton. This is a very low costing samurai. Now we have another one with Imposter of the Sixth Pride. Now we have Aven Changeling. This is going to be a Changeling with flying. Now we have Bloodline Pretender. This one's fun. When Bloodline Pretender enters the battlefield, we're going to choose a creature type, which is going to be samurai. But whenever another creature of the chosen type enters the battlefield, we're going to put a +1 counter on Bloodline Keeper. And of course, we have the iconic Mirror Entity. This one is very powerful. It has a activated ability where we can turn every single creature with the base power of whatever types we have. So since every single creature will be samurai, they're going to get +X/+X, which is however much mana we dump into this. Now we have some non-samurai creatures that are going to help us. So we have Mentor of the Meek. Whenever another creature with power 2 or less enters the battlefield, we can pay 1 colorless and draw a card. And of course, we have Esper Sentinel. And because we're going to have a lot of creatures entering the battlefield, we're going to be gaining life with Soul Warden. Now we have a very powerful card with God Eternal Oketra. Apart from being a 3/6 with double strike on its own, whenever we cast a creature spell, we're going to create a 4/4 black zombie with vigilance. So we're going to capitalize on all that. Okay, we have a couple enchantments that are going to help us. So we have Darksteel Mutation. We're going to enchant our opponent's commander and totally turn it off so it does nothing. Okay, now we have land tax. That way we can thin our deck by going and getting as many planes out of that deck as possible. Now we have Trouble in Pairs. This is pretty much just to give us a hedge against our opponents, because if a opponent would take an extra turn, they skip that extra turn. And whenever a opponent attacks us with 2 or more creatures, or draws their second card, or cast their second spell each turn, we get to draw a card. And because we're kind of like a go wide strategy, we are playing Carther's Crusade. This is a very powerful card. Whenever any creature enters the battlefield under our control, we're going to put a +1 counter on each creature we control. Okay. We're only running 2 sorceries. We have Dusk, which is destroy all creatures with power 3 or greater. Because if our opponents are going to have a lot of large creatures, we can deal with that board very early. If we happen to destroy our board, if they're too big, we can cast the other side, which is Dawn. This has Aftermath. So once we cast Dusk, we can cast Dawn from our graveyard. But we're going to return all creature cards with power 2 or less from our graveyard back to our hand. So we're not going to be worried too much if all our stuff gets blown up. Now we have Austere Command. Similar to Dusk, we can choose to destroy all artifacts, destroy all enchantments, or we're going to destroy all creatures with mana cost 4 or greater, or 3 or less. Most of the time, we're going to choose the mana cost 4 or greater, and it's really not going to affect us too much. Okay, let's get into the instance. Of course, we have Enlightened Tutor, so we can go get whatever artifact or enchantment. This is only primarily here for the combo aspect, which I'll get to in just a second. Now we have a bunch of removal spells to deal with our opponent's stuff. So we have Dispatch. Now we have Pat's Exile. And we have Swords of Plowshares. Okay, now we have Kabira Takedown. Because we're going to have a lot of little samurais lying around, we're going to be able to take out a much larger creature that our opponent controls. This is also a MDFC, which means you can play it as a land. It'll be Kabira Plateau, if you really need the land. Now we have Stroke of Midnight. That way we can deal with a very pesky non-land permanent our opponent's control. Now we have kind of like a counter spell-ish with Lapse of Certainty. We're going to counter a spell, but if that spell was countered, instead of going to the graveyard, it's going to be put back on top of its owner's library. Similar to that, we have Reprieve. But instead of countering the spell, we're going to return the spell back to its owner's hand while it's on the stack, and we're going to draw a card. Now we have Generous Gift, so we can deal with another permanent that we can't deal with. Now we have Sajiri Shelter. These are going to be more like our kind of protection spells. This is another MDFC, but we're going to give one of our creatures protection of whatever color until the end of turn. Now we have Flawless Maneuver. That way, if our opponents decide to like Blasphemous Act or Wrath of God, we're going to give every single creature we control indestructible until the end of turn. Now we have a fun one. We have Astral Steel. This is a storm card, but the reason we're playing this is because of the combo loop. So we're going to make one creature very, very large. That way we can take out that opponent very quickly. Now we have Silence. Silence is only really here. That way our opponents can't interact with us. Okay, let's get into the artifacts. Of course, we're playing Soul Ring, Arcane Signet, Mind Stone, Thran Dynamo. Most of these mana rocks are going to produce a lot of colorless mana because of what Kentaro will allow us to do. Now we have Ashnod's Altar. Now we have Pearl Medallion. These are going to be a whole bunch of cost reductions for us. So we have Pearl Medallion. We have Herald's Horn. Herald's Horn is going to be very efficient. Every single upkeep, we get to look at the top card, and if it's a creature card that shares the type, we get to put that card into our hand first before our draw step. Now we have Semblance Anvil. It's just a higher cost reduction. Instead of 1, it's going to be reduced by 2. Now we have Cloud Key. Now we have Oketra's Monument. That way we can continually create warrior tokens. Okay, now we have Bantu's Monument. We're only going to use this for whenever we cast a creature spell. Each opponent is going to lose 1 life and we're going to gain a life. Because we're going to infinitely cast samurai spells. And we're going to do that with Urza's Incubator. But I'll get to the combo in just a second. Now we have Vanquisher's Banner. That way we can choose Samurai, and all our Samurai are going to get bigger by 1, and whenever we cast, we're going to draw a card. Okay, now we have Oathkeeper, Takeno's Daisho. This is only really here just to be flavorful because it's a samurai deck, and every samurai needs their trusted katana. Okay, now we have the main combo artifact itself that we're going to use to create this infinite loop. And when we do, we have a couple different options on how we can infinitely win the game. We can use Altar of the Brood to mill out all our opponents, or we can use Aetherflux Reservoir because we're actually casting these cards. We're going to gain 1 life consecutively for each time we cast it, and then we're going to gain infinite life. Then we're going to pay 50 life and kill our opponents in 1 shot. Now we have a fun one with Halo Fountain. We're going to use this as kind of a backdoor win condition just in case we can't assemble the infinite combo. So we're going to keep creating a whole bunch of tokens, and then if we pay 5 white and we untap 15 tap creatures, we win the game on the spot. Okay, let's get into the combo. You're going to need Kentaro and Cloudstone Curio on the battlefield. Then you're going to need any kind of cost reducer, such as Semblance Anvil or Urza's Incubator. Then you're going to need 2 low costing samurai spells. I would choose Universal Automaton or Devoted Retainer because reducing their cost to 0 is a lot easier. You can do it also with a 2-drop. And then how this works is if we have both of those on the battlefield, all we do is cast 1. We're going to return the other back to our hand and then keep recasting this over and over and over. And if we do that, we can have either Aetherflux Reservoir or Altar of the Brood. That way we can infinitely mill our opponents or gain infinite life and win the game from there. And that was the very simple combo. Okay, let's get into the land base. I'm running 22 planes, running Eiganjo Castle. That way we can pay 1 white and prevent the next 2 damage that would be dealt to a legendary creature. Now we have Eiganjo, Seat of the Empire. You can pay 3 and discard this to deal 4 damage to a attacking or blocking creature. Now we have Amiria the Sky Ruin. Control 7 or more planes, we can return any creature from our graveyard back to the battlefield. Now we have Minas Tirith. This will enter tapped unless we control a legendary creature, but we're going to pay 2, activate this, and draw a card. But we can only do this if we attacked with 2 or more creatures that turn. So that really shouldn't be a problem. Now we have Castle Ardenvale. This is going to allow us to keep making more tokens. That way we can eventually win with Halo Fountain. Now we have War Room. That way we can pay 1 life and draw a card for 3 mana. Now we have Temple of the False God. We have Arch of Araska. Getting the City's Blessing is not going to be very difficult for us. So all we have to do is pay 5 mana and we can draw a card every single turn. And to deal with any annoying land our opponent controls, we have Field of Ruin, and then we both can search for a basic land. Now we have the Mycosynth Garden. We're going to use this land to make a copy of another non-token artifact we control in case we need like another Altar of the Brood or a Iron Soul Enforcer. And that was the deck tech for Kentaro the Smiling Cat. I really hope you guys enjoyed this deck tech. I've been wanting to build a very flavorful mono white samurai deck for a very long time, and I would really like to hear your guys' opinions or suggestions for anything you saw. But be sure to like, comment, subscribe, follow me on TikTok, share these videos, and I'll see you guys in the next one.